Welcome to Family Basics 101. I'm Dr. Bruce McClure, the local minister at the Prince George's Church of Christ, and we're located at 7800 Central Avenue in Landover, Maryland. This week, we focused our attention on studying a simplistic topic dealing with individuals in the Bible that you would not suspect, you would not expect, you would not anticipate a change in their life based on their family history. Today, we will talk about yet another biblical character that uncharacteristically, based upon family history, does something out of the ordinary. So I've titled today's lesson for Family Basics 101, When Blood Isn't Thicker Than Truth. In Psalms 127, verses 4 and 5, children are a gift from the Lord to parents and to the man who has been the receiver of such a gift. Indeed, we have something much more to be thankful and responsible for in terms of nurturing and caring for that child or children. Because keep in mind, children are a gift from the Lord, and the person who has children from the Lord should indeed count that as an added blessing of life. Proverbs 22, verse 6. Parents are responsible for the development of children into accountable adults. We are instructed by the Lord as parents to bring up a child in the way he or she ought to go. That's the parental responsibility. In 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verse number 14, parents are also charged to be the provider spiritually, physically, ethically, relationally for their children. The children ought not to lay up for the parents, but the parents for the children. In other words, it should not be the child's responsibility to take care of a parent spiritually. It should not be the child's responsibility to make sure that the parents' rent is paid or that the parents' food is purchased. Paul is saying in the normal way of life, it is the parent who takes care of their children. So let's move to the assumption that the parents have done all of these necessary things as instructed by the Lord. They done the Lord's bidding. And then the child grows older and the child becomes more independent and makes a decision that although my blood relatives, my kinsmen, they've been good to me, they've blessed me, they've kept me along the way, I'm older now. And now I must make life choices for myself. There's a man in the Old Testament by the name of Jonathan. As he got older, he begins to question Saul regarding David. Now, Saul is Jonathan's father. David is actually a servant to Saul. Look at the story in 1 Samuel 19, beginning at verse number 1. Now Saul spoke to Jonathan, his son, and to all his servants that they should kill David. But Jonathan, Saul's son, delighted greatly.
You know what? I found the letter, but he's
what Jonathan is going to do. Jonathan is going to intercede on behalf of David. But Jonathan's intervention is going to be against his father, Saul. So look at the text. So Jonathan told David, saying, my father Saul seeks to kill you. Therefore, please be on your guard until morning and stay in a secret place and hide. In other words, don't sleep very sound tonight. You watch everybody that come and go, and you hide out in a secret place. And I will go out and stand beside my father in the field where you are. And I will speak with my father about you. Then what I observe in terms of my father's reaction, I will tell you. This is how Jonathan spoke well of David to Saul, his father. And this is what he said. Let not the king sin against his servant David, because he has not sinned against you, and because his works have been very good towards you. Now, this is Jonathan, the son of Saul, saying, Father, you are the king, but why are you working against David? He's your servant. He hasn't done anything wrong towards you. Look at verse number 6, 1 Samuel 19. He took his life in his own hands and killed the Philistine. Remember the story of Goliath? Jonathan is reminding Saul that, remember when he was a young lad? He took his own life in his own hand. He put himself in danger for your honor as king. He wanted to make sure that you were not humiliated by the Philistine giant. Father, he did this for you. And the Lord brought about a great deliverance for all Israel. Now, as king, Jonathan understood in making his case to his father that if Israel was delivered from the Philistines, then Saul was delivered from the Philistines. You saw it and you rejoiced. Why then will you sin against innocent blood to kill David without a cause? Wow. Would you've ever expected a king's son to stand up to his father and make a case for a young man by the name of David? I mean, Jonathan has everything to lose, but yet he is standing for truth. Jonathan made a hard decision about relationships very early in life. And I would submit that each of us must make decisions, hard decisions, about relationships, blood relationships, just like Jonathan. 1 Samuel chapter 20, verses 32 through 35. And Jonathan answered Saul, his father, and said to him, why should he be killed? What has he done? Then Saul cast a spear at Jonathan, by which Jonathan knew that it was determined by his father to kill David. He says, boy, if he'll kill me, I know he'll kill David. So Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger and ate no food the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David, because his father had treated him shamefully. And so it was in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field at the time appointed with David, and a little lad was with him. Jonathan says, Daddy, you're not making sense. And I can't go along with your behavior, with your decisions that just don't make sense. you are operating against the will of God. Look at verse number 42 of 1 Samuel chapter 20. Then Jonathan said to David, go in peace, since we have both sworn in the name of the Lord, saying, may the Lord be between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever. So he arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. Jonathan loves his father, but Jonathan also loves truth, which means Jonathan's love for God exceeded his allegiance to his earthly father. When a child chooses God and God's truth over the family, you can't lose. Look at 2 Samuel chapter 1, verse number 17. Then David lamented with this lamentation over Saul and over Jonathan. Tomorrow, we're going to wrap up this series by talking about what happened to Jonathan and Saul. They're both killed. But in verse 22, from the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan did not turn back, and the sword of Saul did not return empty. Saul and Jonathan were beloved and pleasant in their lives, and in their death, they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles. They were stronger than lions. How the mighty have fallen in the midst of the battle. Jonathan was slain in your high places. I am distressed for you, my brother Jonathan. You've been very pleasant to me. Your love to me was wonderful, surpassing the love of women. David's eulogy is a word of testimony to the integrity of Jonathan. You loved your father. You died beside your father. The two of you together were warriors. But you understood who I was as David. And you never allowed your relationship with your father to blind you to the reality of who I am. Now, in 2 Samuel chapter 4, verse 4, and 2 Samuel chapter 9, verses 3 through 4, after the death of Jonathan, King David seeks out a descendant of Jonathan. And that young man is named Mephibosheth. And David is going to invite Mephibosheth into his home because of the kindness shown to David through Jonathan. David is going to generationally pass that kindness on to Jonathan's son and his descendants. When we choose God's truth over family, God is going to bless our decision. Earthly family may forsake us. Earthly family may not want us around. But God will always bless us with relationships, meaningful relationships that will move generationally into our lives, simply because, like Jonathan, we make godly choices, that we love our blood relatives, but we love the truth of God even greater. Make sure you return to class tomorrow as we conclude the lesson about Jonathan and the hard choices that he made, the dedication that he has for Israel, the dedication he has for his father, and the dedication and love he had for David. I'll see you back in class again tomorrow. Don't be late and don't skip class.